Hey, so here is a before and after if you don't want to watch the whole video, which is super understandable. If that's what you're here for, great. I hope you enjoy. This is a long video, so I will include timestamps to every single thing that I do, which is which part I'm currently shaping, or what I'm doing, or what I'm explaining. And I will say this later, but I'll say it now again. I'm not an expert at shaping whatsoever. I'm just using my newly found skills to fix old mistakes that I made in old models as an exercise for myself. This whole video was recorded with my phone camera on a long Pringles tube with some cuts in it, very DIY. It's not a sponsor, but Pringles, feel free to hit me up. Alright, that's all. Enjoy the video, bye! Hey everyone. So I've been meaning to do something like this for a while now. I got the idea a while ago to film a little video series maybe, or just a single video, where I take old models, like this one here, and try to glue them and shape them again with the knowledge that I have now, in order to make them look better, and so they can stay preserved longer as well. I've been doing this to other models that I've made previously as well, and honestly it just involves a lot of gluing, a lot of like little restructuring, just to make them more durable, and so they stand more easily. So these are some examples. So this Brachiosaurus by Gen Hagiwara, like these layers right here, were all just loose before, and there are a lot of loose layers here, right, both on the back and front. And I just glued them down a little bit, same for some layers in the neck, and now it stands up much more rigidly without any problems. And then I did the same exact thing for a more recent model that I've made, which is the Siderosaurus by Ponader, which also now stands. Hold on, let me show it real quick. So all of these layers here in the back were kind of splaying out before. So I compressed it all with glue, shaped the belly a bit more. I filled it as well with some paper, as you can see, to give the belly a bit more volume. And it is very, very rigid and solid right now, and can stand on its own easily as well. It's a big boy. So I figured I would do the same thing, but with an even older model that I've made. This is the Self-Made Man by Joisel. I made this, I think, about 2 years ago, like a really, really long time ago at this point. And it's been on my shelf for a long time, just taunting me. And it needs a lot of work, to be frank, in order to make it look on par with my standards now. So I am going to attempt to reshape this entire model, and just take you along for the ride. So there's a couple of things that immediately stand out on this particular model that need to be changed, in my opinion. So this face, for example, so let's start with that. So when I'm talking details, I'm going to zoom in a bit. There we go. So this face needs some love, I would say. It is very loosely defined, very basic shaping is done, a lot of loose layers. It is not held in place correctly. It like tilts upward a bit, you know? And the sheet itself that is being held is very loose, or it has become very loose over the years. I hope to make this a lot more rigid. These fingers, man, these fingers. So none of them are glued, right? The layers in the fingers are not glued, and they're not really shaped either, both the left and right fingers. And moreover, they're supposed to be holding on to the paper like this, but they're not, basically. In reality, if you just leave it be for a while, it will just slowly move away to the back as it curls backwards. And eventually it'll just be hanging like that. The legs could be shaped a lot better, in my opinion. Admittedly, there's not a lot to work with, but they can be improved regardless. Same for the shoes, they're very flimsy. The legs are very flimsy. This definitely does not stand on its own. It always needs to stand. And speaking of the stand, this is like a little photo stand thing. So what I've been doing is I've been attaching it to this little area right here, let's say. And over the years, basically, this rust has left a mark here. A more or less permanent mark, if you will. So we'll find a way to address that as well, so it can be held up for more time. Okay? Alright, back to the bigger view. There we go. So in order to realize all of this, we are going to need a couple of tools. Just basic tools that you probably have at home. This is a very old dried up brush, which I just soaked in water so that the thistles, or whatever they're called, the hairs, are more loose. tweezers, I mean, not pliers, that's a Mayu thing. Tweezers to get small details in and to hold things in place as well. Yeah, I figured something like this would be useful for keeping the square flat, if you will, right? So it doesn't curl up while drying. And the next things would be glue, which would be, this is just white glue, white school glue. And we have MC, of course, just a jar of MC and a pickle jar. So these are our weapons of choice. And yeah, let's hope this is like an educational and fun video. Oh, and just as a disclaimer, I'm by no means a shaping expert or anything. I'm just using what I know now to fix the mistakes I made previously, and I hope somebody finds some part of this useful. That's the whole point. And I'm just having fun with it, so yeah, there you go. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start off with, I think, is the fingers on both the right and left arm. As a reference, I'm going to use Joisel's original fold from 2009, it looks like. I'll put it on the screen somewhere, I hope. I really hope I don't forget. Otherwise, you can just Google Eric Joisel Self-made man. I'm sure you'll figure it out. So in his image, he has the thumb of the left hand, this one right here, grabbing the paper like so, and only the thumb is visible, so none of the arm is actually visible. And then the index finger kind of is adjacent to the paper, and the other fingers are kind of hidden behind and they're not very visible. And for the other hand, there's 3 fingers on the paper, so one on top, one slowly below it, one a bit further below, and then the other ones are kind of hovering in space, if you will. So we're going to use that as a reference, but in order to do that well, I'm going to have to glue all of these layers in the fingers. Because currently they're very sloppy. You can't really pose them without them. I mean, you get what I mean. They're very sloppy right now. You can't really pose them without them jumping back into their original position. So we're going to be working on gluing these fingers first. Right, and I almost forgot, I'm going to be using a little bone folder as well for gluing these very little small points. You could alternatively use a toothpick rather, and that will work just as fine as well. I think I'm just going to use this white glue for the fingers because it will stiffen up quicker and dry quicker. And then for the real bendy part later, I might use some MC to actually wrap them around, and then use white glue again to attach them to the sheet. Actually, I changed my mind. I'm not going to use white glue for the fingers. I'm going to use MC. I just remembered that this particular white glue actually stains yellow on white paper like this, and I think MC will be much more appropriate. And I'm still going to use the little bone folder. It's not really bone, it's wood, but you get the point. Alright, so I'm going to start by opening up these layers and by putting MC in between each and every layer. Right, so that would be one layer, then the joint that connects the 2 fingers. Okay. Then we see if there's another layer into the next finger here, so we open this up again. Okay, so now these 2 fingers have some MC in between them. You can kind of squish them shut, like so. And yeah, these look very 2D and boring right now, but as we kind of move on and get to other stages of shaping, we can get much nicer results basically. So we're on to this middle finger right here, and it has a lot more layers because, well, it's in the middle, right? So we're going to make sure to glue every single gap that lies in between as well. So let's see here. Let's just go from right to left. On to the next layer. And the nice thing about MC is, even if one layer gets a little less MC than the previous one, or the other way around, MC has a tendency to just soak through layers, and over time, as it cures the next day, it will penetrate all the layers and eventually stiffen up everywhere. Okay, so that would be the middle finger. Let's just close it up. So the original folding was not super accurate, I would say, but it's accurate enough, and I think with some shaping it can be done very well. I'm going to make these fingers slightly 3D by just squashing them almost.
And I'll try to do the same for the rest as well. Just a little bit, to give them a bit more volume. I think that will make shaping a bit more manageable later. Okay, whatever. Moving on to the next finger, the fourth finger. So same thing, we're going to pull it open. There's going to be some layers exposed. And there's going to be glue. This is the last layer of this finger. Alright. Close this one up as well. Spread out some excess MC onto the rest of the hand. Doesn't hurt. And we'll make sure to repeat the same process on the back here, because there's a lot of exposed layers too. Or we might not. We might actually use the fact that these are a bit more open to shape the fingers. I'm not sure yet. Then the last finger, I think this is the thumb. So it's a bit difficult to get in there now. So let's see if I can use these tweezers to open up the layers. Yeah, that works. Okay, that's good enough. Alright, just like that. That looks very scuffed now, I 100% agree. But we have glued these top layers shut. And like I said, I think we'll leave these bottom ones unglued, basically, so we can use it to give a bit more structure later. So that's this hand partially done. Let's repeat the same exact process on the other side as well now. So since these arms were bent like this, these hands were bent like this previously, I mean, they're bundled up a bit more along this little crease here. But I think that is manageable. Yeah, absolutely. Alright, let's just repeat the same exact thing here as well then. And like I said, it's okay if you miss some parts. MC soaks through, and you'll be fine in most cases. Oh yeah, pro tip, probably bring a towel or like a little tissue paper to wipe your fingers on. This tends to get messy. So yeah, as you can tell, it's not the cleanest fold. I'll just blame myself for not being as experienced. It's a natural part of learning, huh? And besides, who cares? Nobody cares but yourself. Do this for yourself, not to impress others. Okay. And again, we're leaving the back side open for the time being. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to be using a blow dryer, hair dryer, whatever it's called, this guy, to essentially dry this portion that we've done so far, while making sure that the fingers stay separated and do not stick together like this one does, or these two do right here. In order to not just blow your eardrums away, I'm going to be playing something else over the sound of the hair dryer. So enjoy. Okay, so it became a lot less wet right now. It's not rigid, not at all. It's actually pretty floppy still, but it's a lot less wet, and it has worked its way inside of the paper. There we go. And it will start curing slowly. Part of it has dried already, of course, because of their dryer. And we're going to be doing the exact same drying thing on the other side right now. So it is important for this model that it has a clear visible crease going one way or the other. Currently there's 2 creases visible just from pre-creasing, if I remember correctly. And it is wrinkly. It is very, very wrinkly. Now I'm not sure to what extent I can get these wrinkles out. I think I'm going to be ironing this actually to get some of the wrinkles out. But for the time being, I'm just going to work on making it less flimsy like it is right now. And I think I'm going to start by... Yeah, I'm going to start by gluing this part here closed. And is the other part like this as well? Okay, that part is actually glued. So I'm going to be gluing this part here, and I'm probably going to be applying more glue on the top here to connect these 2 parts, and then just on the surface of this square, I'll be applying MC so that it stiffens up over time, and I'll probably dry that with the hair dryer too. So let's get to it. And now let's just MC this top part. Alright, so here we go. We've glued the back side, we've glued this little connection to the leg, this little top flap, if you will, and we essentially MC'd the whole backside. And I'm just going to be using my hairdryer again to get this to a less wet state, if you will, so the rest of the model becomes more workable. And I might repeat this on the front as well. I don't think that will be necessary, considering we are ironing it to get some of the wrinkles out. Like, some of the wrinkles are getting out slowly. I'm not sure if it shows on camera. Okay, so the wetness that I described earlier is gone now for the most part. There's still like some left in spots, but in general, MC has been applied to this whole part. We'll have to wait until tomorrow really to see how stiff this square is. That's something we can't really tell right now. MC has a tendency to just be more effective over time, if you will, over the course of a day or two. And if this turns out to be not enough, what I'll end up doing is probably mixing in some white glue with the MC, and then apply it in the same way we did before to stiffen it up a bit. And I think that will be sufficient for sure. So far we have done two things. We've glued these hands, we've glued this backside. I think next up is gluing these legs on the bottom here. Yes, there's a lot of gluing involved and not a lot of shaping yet, but honestly, that's origami for you. Modern origami anyway. It's pretty normal. And again, we'll probably iron this out tomorrow as well when it's a lot drier. Okay, so the way I want to shape these legs, I think like in general, there's not a whole lot of layers to work with, if you will, like not a lot of width. It's mostly just this, which really is not that much, right? So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten it out as best I can, to some extent, right? To just some extent. And after flattening it out, I'm going to be applying glue in all these layers. Again, I'll do it with MC, and then if it later turns out that it's not sturdy or rigid enough, I'll mix in some white glue as well. And then I'll hold it while drying it with the hairdryer. And then later, tomorrow probably, I'll re-wet it with the MC, and then slowly start bending and shaping the legs with like this very limited space I have, because really there's not a whole lot you can do, I think. Yeah, so that would be it for the leg. And then for the shoes, honestly, it's a bit hard to say. Like, this is how you would do the shoes, like, traditionally, very broadly speaking, right? The way he does it in his dwarf. But I think with some gluing, like this little tip that sticks out here, right there, it's kind of hard to tell on camera maybe, but I think I can glue it to the rest of the shoe, kind of shape it by putting my thumb under it and then applying glue to it and air drying it, and then hopefully it will be able to stand a lot better. Let's look at our reference real quick. So the shoes are like, appear to be much larger on Joisel's fold, right? I'm kind of curious how that is. So did he sacrifice some length in the leg? That is possible. That is possible. And then one of the shoes is like facing forward, so it has to be bent forward, like this, at an angle basically. And then the other one is kind of bent at the knee, at the suggested knee, I mean, and it is also at an angle. So that might be something we'll have to do later, but for the time being, I'm just going to glue the layers inside of these legs, and yeah, dry them as well. There's a couple of layers here, and then this is the reverse fold that we had to use for the leg. I'm just going to like push it apart a little bit so that we have like a surface, like a flat surface, something like that, right? So like an unshaped flat surface. And this one looks different from that one, I can see, and it's because this layer here is tucked inside, if you will. Can we do anything about this? I could flatten the shoes temporarily. I'm just taking you along for the thinking process, right? I could like flatten them a little bit and try to do the same thing on the other side. Let's see what happens if we do that. Yeah, sure. It is wider on this side. I see, that's the issue really. So can we do anything about this? So if I take my tweezers and get in there and try to expose some more paper, what can we do? It's pretty rigid actually. I might have used some glue for this part that's possible. Okay, that's a little better. So I just pushed this little thing to the left to expose more paper on the right, so the proportions on both the left and right are more similar. Okay, that looks a lot more alike, I think. Still not perfect, but who cares about perfection, man? Okay, and now the next task is to put some glue here. So previously we glued the part that was under it. Now we're going to put some glue here, and then glue, I think I'm just going to put glue in the top and bottom of the leg, and I'll just hope it soaks through sufficiently. Because, yeah, getting into all of these layers is a bit of a pain, I feel. And again, if it turns out to not work, I'll just redo it by going in every single layer. I'm just learning as I go as well. Alright, let's do that, huh? And let's apply the MC. This is relatively thick MC, by the way. I'm not sure if I mentioned that at the start. It's pretty thick MC. That is generally what is most suited for shaping. When it comes to MC anyway, right? Like, I'm not talking about PVA or other glues. But if you plan on shaping with MC, thicker MC is generally the way to go. So I think, like, previously, when I was shaping this, like, for my first time, I might have used glue, but in very limited spots. I probably didn't know about MC shaping that much, so I used some white glue here and there. And that's why some parts are glued down, like this here, and some are not, like the one on the right. So I'll just do this again. I might need like a little white glue actually here in the middle. Alright, so that would be most of the front, or the back actually, the back of the leg. And then we'll repeat the same thing on the front. Oh yeah, and don't worry about the mess that I'm making, like all this residue of glue. I'll just clean it up later, it's fine. And I'm kind of getting to the shoe as well, like to the heel of the foot essentially, because that whole thing has to be very stable. And I'll do the same thing here. Okay, now let's get the hairdryer and get to drying. Alright, so the legs have been dried, they're not as wet as anymore. And I can already tell that these fingers, which we did at the start, have already been getting more sturdy as we've just used the hairdryer on the rest of the paper, on the rest of the model. So that's like a nice added benefit. Tell you what, for today I'm just going to call it quits. I'm going to wait for this to dry, and I'll probably work on this sometime soon, probably tomorrow. I'm just busy right now, I have some shit to get done. So I'll see you tomorrow. And just like that, it is tomorrow. So, the results. The paper has indeed got a lot more sturdy, as you can see. The square does not flop around anymore as it did before. These fingers have become a lot more sturdy as well, but still pliable, so we can still shape these and bend them into nice shapes for sure. The legs have become a lot more sturdy as well, which is to be expected. These wrinkles, I'm probably going to get out today. It is 11 PM, it's kind of late, so I might extend it until another day. But I will get these out next. And I also took the opportunity to kind of bend the face forward a bit more. And yeah, so next up is probably making these feet, ironing the square, posing the fingers, and then the last thing we'll do, I think, is the face, which shouldn't be too much trouble. There's like some adjustments I want to make, mainly giving it more defined eyes, bringing the nose forward a little bit, bringing this whole head structure forward a little bit, and maybe defining a mouth in a more clear way. So yeah, let's get to it. I have it set in a pretty low temperature, so yeah, let's hope this goes well. And hey, if it doesn't go well, then I've learned something new, and that's worth quite a bit. Okay, let's do this corner. So the effect so far seems to be quite minimal, but there is some change, I would say. I guess it will become more apparent in the before and after pictures. Okay, at least it's more flat. That's worth something, I think. So, okay, naturally there are some creases I can't seem to get out. Wow, the camera makes it look way worse than it is. So in real life, just disregard the camera for now. This looks a lot better, actually, than it did before. I think that had some improvement. Maybe not as much as I had hoped, but that's quite alright. So I want to define these legs first, because I don't think it's too much trouble. There's an upper leg and a lower leg. I kind of want to make this distinction a bit more clear. I'll try to round it out a bit, and yeah, I'm probably like twist and turn it later. Let's get to it. So I'm going to loosely make the upper leg three-dimensional. And then for the lower leg, I'm going to pinch it more so that there is contrast between the two, and this will naturally kind of rotate this foot. Again, like, we're working with very limited surface, and my skills, mind you, are limited as well. Like, I'm sure there's people who can really make this stand out a lot better than I can, but hey, I'm working with what I know, right? Okay, that already looks a little bit better than it did before. Let's see. I think it can be rounded a bit more on top and almost completely squished flat on the bottom. Okay, that's nicer. I think that difference is visible now between these two. You can tell this kind of looks like a chicken leg. That makes sense, right? It's a bit thicker on top, and then it's thinner down here. And this is how it looked like before, essentially. So we're going to repeat this same thing as best as we can on the left side. Okay, so this is starting to look a lot better right now. So the left leg has been bent in the same way that I did the first one. I'll probably do some final touches at the last minute. And from the back, it's just this. At the ankles, I pinched both of the layers together as much as I could to suggest lower or a thinner lower legs. And on the top, I pinched as well, but a lot more softly. I tried to emphasize more curviness and volume, right? And that seems to give the desired effect pretty well. Okay, with the legs out of the way, let's start working on these two shoes. So here's the thing. I cannot imagine a world where this actually stands up straight on its own, just because of the way the model is. It's very two-dimensional, you know? So what I'm trying to do is suggest that it's at least standing with both feet firmly on the ground, and I'll maybe put it on a stand or something and put a wireframe in the back, or I'll hold it up with some kind of clamp. So I want to make these shoes now. I'm going to twist, like, I'm going to pinch at the bottom here and twist slowly to make them more forward facing and flat on the ground as well. And then I'll do the same thing here. Let's just stay on the same angle roughly right now. There's enough room for change if we wish for that later. Just like that. So it stands with its 2 feet on the ground now. And I'm going to be applying some MC on the inside and outside of these layers, and I'll be drying it with the hairdryer as well. Now, these legs, these shoes, are only 1 layer thick, 2 layers thick at most here. So it's going to be a bit flimsy after the MC is applied, but it should be fine. After it dries up, it will be more than okay. Matter of fact, these shoes for the dwarf were done in much the exact same way, and they're pretty sturdy now. Let's start. So I'm going to take my MC jar, use my bone folder to apply it carefully, and just spread it out. Thick MC again, as usual. Alright, so I've applied the MC, the thick MC, and as you can tell, the flimsiness is already starting to show. I'm going to get some of the excess MC out by spreading it out lightly. Next up is using the hairdryer to hairdry this. So we'll see you in a moment. Okay, so the left shoe has dried a little bit after blow drying it, and we'll be doing the exact same thing to this shoe as well. Okay, so we did the exact same thing to the other foot. We MC'd it and dried it with a hairdryer. It looks much better now. So they're both not completely dry. Again, we'll have to wait until tomorrow for them to be completely dry and solid, but it means we can move on to the next part, which is going to be the fingers. So looking at the reference image again, we can see that this first finger here is kind of hidden behind the back. Then you have 3 fingers gripping the paper, and this one is kind of hovering in space. But these fingers are very flat and boring currently, so I'm going to be giving them a bit more volume just by mountain folding along the middle of each finger. And I'll do that by just pinching along the middle, like so, and then we can like do little crimps to get every single finger segment in. That would be 2. So you can see the difference already, right? It's 2. If you made it this far into the video, by the way, you are an OG. Alright, that's 3. 2 more. That was 4. And that's 5. Alright, now let's try to pose it in a similar-ish way. So this first finger, let me just double check. So this first finger, this thumb presumably, is hidden behind the paper, like so. Then we have this one, gripping the paper. Let's make a little knuckle in the finger by just folding down the half roughly. This one is a bit under it, and it also has a knuckle, of course. Again, like, this is rough shaping. If I did this from scratch, so if I fold this model from scratch, this would have been much easier to do, but, you know, we are working with what we have. This one is kind of like stuck in space and then grips the paper, right? So it's a bit lower, like here. It also feels very long. That's some Joisel magic right there. Okay, so we'll probably have to attach those to the paper one way or another. And then this one is kind of just hovering like this. That's kind of close if you use your imagination. I'll probably have to reinforce this last finger because it seems very flimsy currently. So let's do some dry shaping for the time being. I'll leave it as is. And then for the other hand, it is just a thumb that kind of wraps around actually. And we'll do the same shaping of the fingers where we just pinch it together, except this time it's like a valley fold. I think that's more appropriate. And then this goes over the paper about here. And then the index finger, which is very long on his fold, is going down the sides. These fingers are all the same size though, right? I think that gets the message across pretty well. Okay, that's nice. Shoe got bent. That's okay. Cool. Okay, so both the left and right hand have been put in place, MC has been applied to them, and they've been dried partially. Next up would be the face, but I think I'm going to wait for tomorrow to do that because it's getting very late. And yeah, we'll probably do some like final posing since the legs will be dry tomorrow and be done with it. See you tomorrow. Okay, so it is the final day. So what we did yesterday was work on these fingers, getting them into position, as well as these legs, or the shoes rather. So these fingers, they are very stubborn right now. They're actually kind of sticking to the paper, with the square I mean, which is good. They're in the position I wanted them to be in. I guess these fingers could be shaped a little bit better, but I'll leave it as is for now. Last task of today, and I want to make this quick because this video is super long, is shaping this face. So what I'm going to do is work on these eyes. I'm going to stick these tweezers inside and twist it like this to suggest eyes. I'm going to move this brow or forehead up a bit so the eyes are like more visible basically. This nose, I think I'm going to not make as flat as it is now with this rabbit ear here. I'm going to have it be a bit more 3D and round it out as well. And then for this mouth, I'll see what I'll do, but I think like a simple fix is enough. I'll figure it out. So with that being said, let's get started. I'm going to put everything into position, maybe glue the sides first, and then yeah, start shaping. Okay, so in Joisel's fold, the forehead, which is this part up top here, is folded and shaped to kind of come to the front of the paper. And I kind of want to achieve a similar result by filling in this empty headspace right here. Probably some paper, something like this, like something very small to stuff inside. And in order to do that, I need to first glue like a loose layer here, like an unintentional loose layer, this one. And then after that, I'll stuff it in, and I'll probably apply some MC to this head, push the paper through a little bit more so that it stands out, and dry it, and then continue the rest of the shaping. Okay, so that's glued now. Okay, so I'm going to take some tissue paper and start rolling the shape that I want to be putting in. So if you look inside, it's kind of hard to see, but there's two openings essentially. One on the left, one on the right, and then like a central space. So I'm going to try to fill both of those openings as well as the central space using some tissue paper. This is toilet paper, yeah. I'm just going to roll them up into similar shapes, like roughly cylindrical shapes essentially. Something like this. And I'm going to do the same one for the other side. And these are just for holding stuff in place. These are not necessarily for volume just yet. So you can see this side is already like bulked up a little bit. I have to be careful because all of this is one layer thick and I'm in here poking the paper. Let's try to do the same thing with the other side. Okay. So that's two of these in place. Let's straighten the head a little bit if we can. And then next up is making a little ball and then sticking it up this cavity here. That will like naturally raise the brows as well, hopefully, which will make the eyes stand out more. So this probably needs a bigger piece of TP. Let's see, how about this size? That's a tad bit too large, so we can rip it off. Like this, maybe fold it in half and apply some MC to it. Alright. Oh yeah, and in case I haven't mentioned it yet, the idea is to keep these inside, even after the model is finished. So I fold this in half roughly, and trying to put it in. It looks like he has like a protruding brain or something. That's funny. Okay. Can like kind of pinch these sides, right? So just like the top of the skull, and kind of mold the left and right sides. I haven't applied MC to the top surface yet. This is all just from what's soaking through from below. Yeah, okay. Nice, I really like this. I'm going to apply like a small coating of MC, like a very light coating. Again, we're going to emphasize the shape. We are going to be hair drying this as well. And after it has dried out a little bit more, we'll reevaluate and revisit it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some white glue in these little gaps here that connects the forehead and the chin to lock these in. And then after that, so once this is closed, I can get into these little eye holes that you can see and shape them the way I described earlier. So these two sides have been glued and it has dried, so it's now time to shape these two eyes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these tweezers and I'm going to stick them in that eye hole, like that, and twist carefully. And there you go. That's an eye. Alright, I think I'm going to MC this right now before working on the other one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dip this bone folder in MC. I'm going to stick it in, twist it around, and then I'm going to keep it in. And while keeping it in, hair dry it so that it stays in shape. Alright, so here we go. It looks a lot better already. You can clearly see the difference between the two eyes. This is the before, this is the after. I'm going to attempt to make this exact same eye on the other side as best as I can. So, we'll see you in a moment. Holy shit, it's standing on its own. Okay, so here we are. Both of the eyes have been shaped as similar as possible, or an attempt has been made at it anyway. They're made a bit more visible with this little forehead going up. Next up would be the nose, and then the mouth, and some slight reshaping of the face. So as discussed earlier, for the nose I probably want to make it a little bit less wide. It's a bit stiff from the excess MC. Okay, so it's a bit hard to see, but I undid this rabbit ear that was below before, while still suggesting a nose. And that alone, like that simple modification, gives it a lot more character, I feel. And with the nose and eyes out of the way, we can move on to the mouth. In the reference picture, the chin and cheekbones are pretty triangular, like they are here. So this area here needs to be mountain folded a little bit. Now the layers have accumulated and dried up a lot in this area, so I'll have to re-wet it probably, and then with a tweezer just fold it back. And then for the mouth, so it seems that there's like a little lip sticking out on the bottom, which I'm guessing is from this little squash that is underneath. You can kind of see it right here. If this doesn't work while dry, I will wet it probably with MC, and then I'm assuming this will be much more manageable. And after that, I'll probably take this, mountain fold it slightly under so that this lip underneath becomes visible. And that should get us pretty close to our final result. I'll probably make, oh yeah, another thing, I'll probably make like a little mountain fold that goes across this chin here and maybe the mouth a little bit to suggest some more dimensionality. Yeah, I'll get back to you when that is finished. Slight change of plans. I think it actually looks pretty cool if I have like an open mouth right here. I can kind of suggest it by just using those two flaps to make like an open mouth and then gluing the sides down with white glue probably. Here we go. I feel like this face is in a good spot right now, at least compared to where it was before, you know? I like this a lot more. So what's left is just final posing and taking pictures really. Overall, I'm very satisfied with how this turned out. I could define this one of these belly folds a bit more like it is in the model, and yeah, hopefully the next scene or next picture will be the finished product and a before and after. Alright, and the very last thing is concerning the stand and how it was very rusty before, as you can see right there. I'll be using this amazingly cool stand that I got as a gift from Origami by Boys. Love you, thank you. Which works very well for this model. I just have it clamped, I mean, by the head, which is not optimal, but I'll find something better eventually. But this is a great solution, and I'll keep this on my shelf displayed this way as well.
Alright, we are at the very end. I don't know what to say. This was a lot of fun to make. Thank you for watching. Whether you saw the whole entire thing like some crazy person, or just skip through parts here and there, which is a lot more understandable, to be honest. I appreciate it still. I might be doing one of these in the future. I don't know. This takes a lot more work than I thought. I'm not used to making these videos, you know? Either way, I very greatly appreciate your viewership, and I hope to see you again the next time. Have fun folding origami, and have fun shaping origami as well. Hey, don't give up on your old models. Don't give up.